It started with a joke that didn't sound like a joke. Soulja Boy didn't whisper, he didn't hint. He dragged Blueface straight through the timeline like overdue paperwork nobody wants to sign. Child support, loud, public, unapologetic, and just like that, a rap beef turned into a financial audit in front of millions. Because when Soulja Boy starts clowning, it's usually for laughs, but this time, the tone was different. This wasn't haha, this was pay up. And the internet froze for half a second before exploding, because nothing hits harder than a rapper being accused of dodging responsibilities while flexing online like bills don't exist. Blueface didn't stay quiet. Of course he didn't. He clapped back like someone who felt cornered, annoyed, and absolutely not in the mood to be lectured by Big Draco. But instead of shutting it down, the response poured gasoline on the fire. Screenshots, side-eyes, old receipts resurfacing like unpaid invoices from 2019. Suddenly, everyone became a forensic accountant. Comment sections turned into courtrooms, memes flew faster than logic, and trust me, this made the Kardashians' money drama look like Monopoly night gone wrong. Because once child support enters a rap beef, the rules change. This stops being entertainment and starts feeling personal. So the real question isn't who said what got, it's why this hit so hard. And what else is about to come due. This didn't start like a traditional beef. There were no diss tracks, no studio sneak disses, no cryptic bars hidden behind ad-libs. This started the modern way, reckless, unfiltered, and way too public. Soulja Boy didn't warm up. He didn't test the waters. He went straight for Blueface's jugular with one accusation that instantly changed the tone of the conversation. Child support, loud, casual, and delivered with the same energy people use when they think the receipts are already common knowledge. That's why it hits so hard. Because Soulja didn't frame it as a rumor. He framed it like a fact everyone was already supposed to know. And in internet culture, confidence is everything. The moment he said it, the timeline froze for half a second, then absolutely detonated. Blueface has never been shy. Silence is not his brand. But this time, the delay before his response mattered. Because when someone gets accused of dodging responsibility, every second of quiet feels like confirmation to people who were already waiting to laugh. And once Blueface clapped back, it wasn't a clean denial. It was defensive energy wrapped in sarcasm, irritation, and that familiar tone of someone who feels attacked but also annoyed they even have to address it. That response didn't shut anything down. It cracked the door wide open, because when you respond emotionally instead of conclusively, the internet assumes there's smoke somewhere nearby. And once that assumption takes hold, facts become optional. The audience starts filling gaps with screenshots, timelines, and selective memory. And suddenly, this wasn't about Soulja Boy anymore. It was about Blueface's entire public persona getting audited in real time. The thing about child support accusations is that they don't exist in a vacuum. They attach themselves to everything else you've ever done online. Flexing becomes suspicious. Laughing becomes insensitive. Posting luxury suddenly looks like evidence. The same behavior that once got applause now gets side-eyed. And the internet loves a contrast. Blueface has built a brand around chaos, controversy, and not caring what anyone thinks. That works until the conversation shifts from antics to accountability. Because accountability doesn't care about personality. It doesn't care about clout. It only cares about consistency. And consistency is where things started getting uncomfortable. Soulja Boy, for his part, leaned into it. He didn't backtrack. He didn't soften the blow. He doubled down with the confidence of someone who either knows something or truly believes the internet will do the rest of the work for him. And that's dangerous, because when you let the audience investigate, they will always find something, even if it's not what you intended. Old clips started resurfacing, interviews, comments. Moments that once felt like jokes suddenly felt loaded. People began connecting dots that may or may not have belonged together. But once those connections exist, They're impossible to fully undo. And the wild part, nobody needed confirmation anymore. The narrative had momentum. Blueface's clapback shifted the focus from denial to defense. And defense invites scrutiny. Instead of killing the story, it made people lean in harder. The comment sections turned into courtrooms with no judges and unlimited prosecutors. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone had a theory. Everyone suddenly became an expert on child support law without ever opening a statute. What made this moment especially explosive was who delivered the accusation. Soulja Boy isn't a neutral observer. He's a veteran of internet chaos, a pioneer of online antics, a man who understands virality like it's a second language. When he throws an accusation into the mix, it's never accidental. It's designed to travel. And travel it did. Within hours, the conversation moved beyond music blogs and landed in mainstream timelines. People who don't even listen to either artist were chiming in. Because nothing spreads faster than a scandal involving money, kids, and public ego. Those three ingredients guarantee engagement. Blueface's supporters tried to shut it down by calling it clout chasing. His critics called it exposure. Both sides missed the bigger issue. This wasn't about who was right yet. This was about how fast perception was shifting. Because once a rapper gets framed as irresponsible, that image sticks harder than any diss track ever could. You can out-trap an opponent. You can out-troll them, but you can't outrun a narrative. Once it locks in, the tone of Blueface's response didn't help. It felt irritated instead of authoritative, defensive instead of dismissive, and in internet logic. Irritation reads like guilt even when it isn't. The audience doesn't reward nuance, it rewards confidence and clarity. Anything else gets interpreted as weakness, and clarity never arrived. That absence allowed the story to grow legs. People started comparing lifestyles, posting side-by-side screenshots, asking questions that weren't really questions, the type that already assumes the answer. The internet wasn't looking for truth. It was looking for confirmation of what it already wanted to believe. This also tapped into a larger cultural pressure. There's a growing impatience with celebrities who flaunt wealth while avoiding responsibility. Whether fair or not, the audience has become hypersensitive to hypocrisy. And once Blueface was positioned inside that frame, every move he made fed the machine. Soulja Boy watched it all unfold without blinking. That's the part that made it even messier. No clarifications, no apologies, just letting the chaos breathe. Because when you throw a match into dry grass, you don't chase the fire. You let it burn. And the fire wasn't just about Blueface anymore. It became a referendum on rap culture, masculinity, and accountability. Commentators started zooming out, talking about patterns, trends, and this always happens. When a single accusation starts feeling think pieces, you know it's crossed from beef into narrative. Blueface didn't collapse under it, but he didn't control it either. And control is everything in moments like this. The story began running him instead of the other way around. His name trended for the wrong reasons. Not for music, not for antics, for responsibility. That shift matters because once the conversation leaves entertainment and enters morality, it's no longer about winning a feud. It's about surviving scrutiny, and scrutiny doesn't move fast. It lingers, it waits. It resurfaces when you least want it to die. By the end of this phase, the stage was set, the audience was primed, the lines were drawn. Soulja Boy had successfully reframed the beef, Blueface had responded, but not resolved, and the internet was nowhere near done. This wasn't the climax. This was the opening audit. And once an audit starts, everything gets examined, whether you like it or not. Once the accusation settled into the timeline, the internet did what it does best when it smells vulnerability. It turned into a circus with spreadsheets. This wasn't rap beef anymore. This was budget beef, IRS energy, courtroom cosplay. Everybody suddenly became a financial analyst with a Wi-Fi connection and a loud opinion. The memes came first. They always do. Soulja Boy laughing Photoshop next to overdue notices. Blueface flexing screenshots next to captions like when The chain hits harder than the payments. It was ruthless, relentless, and completely unforgiving. The jokes weren't clever, they were loud. And loud jokes stick, especially when they hit a nerve the audience already believes exists. Then came the reaction videos. Endless reaction videos, people pausing Soulja Boy's words like he was delivering a closing argument. Others dissecting Blueface's clapback tone like vocal inflection was evidence. The consensus wasn't agreement, it was entertainment. And entertainment thrives on escalation. Soulja Boy didn't retreat. He leaned into the chaos with the confidence of someone who understands one simple rule. If you don't let the story die, it won't. He treated the situation like a victory. Lap, not a risky allegation. That energy alone convinced half the internet that there had to be something there. Because nobody doubles down that hard unless they think they're standing on solid ground, or they know the audience will do the dirty work regardless. And, oh, the audience went to work. Old interviews resurfaced where Blueface joked about money like it was a punchline. It was a punchline. Past posts got recaptioned with new meanings. Even unrelated flexes suddenly felt incriminating. A vacation photo should have paid support. A jewelry post that chain cost a semester. The internet turned selective memory into a sport. Blueface's response strategy didn't shift, and that became part of the problem. He didn't offer receipts. He didn't clarify details. He didn't shut it down with facts. He responded with attitude, and attitude doesn't age well. When the accusation is serious, attitude feeds the narrative instead of killing it. Public opinion fractured again, but louder this time. Supporters accused Soulja Boy of cloud-chasing, hypocrisy, and using real-life responsibilities as punchlines. Critics accused Blueface of dodging accountability and hiding behind bravado. And somewhere in the middle sat the uncomfortable truth. Nobody actually knew the full details, but that didn't stop anyone from acting like they did. This is where the pop culture comparisons got wild. People joked that this beef had more paperwork than a record deal, that it made love and hip-hop court scenes look scripted. Someone said this was the first rap beef sponsored by LegalZoom. Funny until you realize why it landed. Because once money and kids enter the chat, the laughter comes with judgment. Commentators started widening the lens. This wasn't just about Blueface anymore. It became a conversation about rap culture and responsibility, about how the same internet that cheers reckless behavior turns moral the second real consequences show up, about how masculinity in hip-hop gets celebrated when it's loud but questioned when it's accountable. And that conversation made people uncomfortable. Because the internet loves chaos until it asks something back, and this moment asked a lot. It asked why flex culture gets a pass. It asked why accountability is treated like an attack. It asked why accusations about child support trigger laughter instead of concern. Those questions don't trend unless they hit close to home. Blueface's name stayed trending, but the tone changed. Less jokes, more judgment. The memes evolved from playful to pointed. Less laughter, more lectures. That's a dangerous shift for any public figure, because once the audience starts moralizing, you've lost control of the narrative. Soulja Boy kept poking, not necessarily with new information, but with presence. His confidence suggested finality, like he'd already won. And that confidence kept the story alive longer than it had any right to be. Because when the accuser doesn't blink, people assume the accused should. Behind the scenes, people started recalculating. Collaborators went quiet. Industry voices avoided taking sides. Silence became strategic. Nobody wanted to attach themselves to a situation that could age badly in either direction. And when people start distancing themselves quietly, that's when you know the situation has weight. The internet also began doing something else, rewriting history. Blueface's past behavior was suddenly reinterpreted as foreshadowing moments that had nothing to do with the accusation were dragged into the conversation anyway. Because once a narrative sets in, it absorbs everything around it. What made this phase especially volatile was the lack of closure. No receipts dropped. No official statements surfaced. No definitive resolution appeared, just noise, and noise is dangerous because it invites speculation. And speculation hardens into belief faster than truth ever does. Creators tried to capitalize on the chaos while hedging their language. Allegedly became the most overused word on the platform. Everyone wanted the clicks without the consequences. But even careful wording couldn't hide the fact that the audience had already chosen sides. Emotionally, the beef had officially escaped its original boundaries. This wasn't Soulja Boy versus Blueface anymore. This was Blueface versus perception. And perception is undefeated. By the end of this escalation, the internet wasn't asking whether Soulja Boy was right. It was asking why Blueface hadn't shut it down cleanly. That's a subtle but brutal shift, because the burden of proof quietly moved without anyone acknowledging it. The jokes kept coming. The discourse kept cycling. But underneath it all was a growing sense that this had gone beyond entertainment, that something real was being toyed with for clicks, and once that realization sets in, the vibe changes. This phase didn't resolve the scandal. It thickened it. It layered judgment on top of speculation, humor on top of discomfort, and virality on top of a conversation that wasn't meant to be this public. And by the time the noise started thinning again, one thing was clear. This wasn't ending with a punchline. It was heading toward consequences, because once the internet decides you're being audited, it doesn't stop at the first allegation. It keeps digging. When the noise finally started to die down, that's when the damage became visible. Not in trending topics, not in memes, but in movement, in who stopped talking, in who suddenly chose their words carefully, in who disappeared from the conversation altogether. Because scandals don't end when the internet gets bored, they end when behavior changes. And behavior changed. Soulja Boy didn't need to keep talking. He had already done what he came to do. The accusation had landed, circulated, and stuck itself to Blueface's name like a watermark you can't scrub out. Whether it was true, exaggerated, or strategically framed no longer mattered the way it should have. The narrative had been introduced, and narratives don't require confirmation to survive. They just require repetition. Blueface, meanwhile, was left navigating a situation where every move felt heavier than usual. Posting felt risky, flexing felt tone-deaf, joking felt inappropriate, even silence felt suspicious. That's the trap of public accountability narratives. Once you're inside them, there's no neutral option. Everything becomes a signal, and the internet noticed. The jokes slowed down, but the judgment didn't disappear. It hardened, it calcified into side-eyes instead of punchlines. People weren't laughing as loudly anymore, but they were remembering. And memory is the most dangerous thing in a culture that pretends it moves on quickly. What made this aftermath especially uncomfortable was the lack of a clean ending. No receipts cleared the air. No definitive proof shut the story down. No legal clarification arrived to reset the conversation. Just absence. And absence allows the audience to keep the version of the story they prefer. Some fans moved on. Others didn't. Critics bookmarked the moment for future reference. Because once an accusation like this enters the public record, it becomes a reference point. The next time Blueface flexes, someone will bring it up. The next time he claps back at someone, it'll resurface. The next time responsibility becomes a topic, this moment will be dragged back into the light. That's how reputation damage works. It doesn't scream, it waits. Industry reactions told a quieter story. Nobody rushed to defend Blueface publicly. Nobody loudly backed Soulja Boy either. The silence wasn't neutrality. It was caution. People don't jump into situations involving money and kids unless they're certain how it'll age, and uncertainty makes everyone step back. That step back matters because in the entertainment world, distance is data. It tells you who feels safe standing next to you and who doesn't want to risk association. And while no doors slammed shut publicly, a few definitely stopped opening as quickly. The conversation around masculinity in rap also lingered. Commentators didn't just move on, they expanded. They started referencing this moment when discussing responsibility, image, and the cost of turning everything into a joke. Blueface became part of a larger example whether he wanted to or not. That's another consequence of public accusations. They outgrow the people involved. Soulja Boy's role in the aftermath was almost passive. He didn't chase closure. He didn't seek validation. He let the accusation live on its own. And that strategy worked, because the internet filled in the rest. Silence from the accuser can feel like confidence. Silence from the accused feels like avoidance. Fair or not, that's how the audience reads it. Blueface wasn't destroyed by this. Let's be clear. This wasn't a career-ending implosion, but it was a recalibration. A reminder that chaos doesn't protect you forever. That antics stop being funny when they intersect with real-world responsibility. That the audience will cheer until it decides to judge, and that decision can happen overnight. The most revealing part of this aftermath was how quickly the internet normalized the accusation. What started as shocking became casual. People referenced it in passing, threw it into unrelated arguments, used it as shorthand. That's when you know a narrative has stuck. When it becomes background noise instead of breaking news, and background noise is harder to fight than headlines, Blueface's public image shifted slightly, but noticeably. Less reckless hero, more question mark. Less untouchable, more scrutinized. That's not fatal, but it's limiting. It narrows the margin for error. The next controversy won't be met with laughter as easily. The next flex will be inspected instead of celebrated. That's the quiet cost. The audience also learned something about itself, even if it won't admit it. How quickly it turns real-life obligations into punchlines. How fast it demands accountability without caring about accuracy. How easily it participates in public audits without ever having to live with the outcome. This story didn't give the internet a hero or a villain. It gave it discomfort, and discomfort doesn't trend long, but it leaves residue. People will remember how this felt even after they forget the details. By the end of this phase, the chaos had cooled, but the narrative remained unresolved. And unresolved narratives are dangerous because they never really end. They wait for the next trigger. A new post, a new beef, a new flex, a new accusation. And when that happens, this moment will come back up like it never left, because once child support enters a rap beef, you can't put it back in the box. You can't joke it away. You can't outrun it with louder antics. It becomes part of the conversation whether you like it or not. Blueface didn't lose this battle publicly, but he didn't win it either. He survived it, and survival, in this context, means carrying the weight forward. Soulja Boy moved on like someone who knew the damage was already done. The internet moved on like it always does, pretending it didn't play a role. But the consequences stayed behind, because scandals don't need conclusions to be effective. They just need to be remembered. And this one will be not as a joke, not as a meme, but as the moment a rap beef stopped being entertainment and started feeling like an audit. And once that shift happens, nothing ever sounds the same again. Now don't scroll yet, because if you made it this far, you already know this wasn't just rap beef. This was paperwork energy. This was accountability. Knocking while clout pretended not to be home. And if that didn't make you uncomfortable, congratulations, you might be part of the problem. So go ahead and smash that like button like it's overdue and keep dodging your calls. Because stories like this don't just pop up for entertainment. They expose patterns. Drop a comment right now and tell me, did Soulja Boy cross a line? Or did Blueface let the internet write a narrative he should have shut down immediately? No safe takes. Know both sides. Say it with your chest. And if you're not subscribed yet, fix that immediately. This channel doesn't just repost chaos. We decode it. We watch how jokes turn into judgment, how silence turns into suspicion, and how one accusation can flip an entire image overnight. While other pages chase laughs, we track consequences. Hit that subscribe button like you're cutting off someone who brings drama but never brings solutions. Turn on notifications because trust me, the next scandal is already loading, and it never drops quietly. This is where rap culture, internet behavior, and real-life responsibility collide. Where beef stops being funny and starts being revealing. Where flexing meets facts. So stay locked in, stay skeptical, and stay just messy enough to question everything you're being entertained by. Because here at Vibe Crave, we don't just crave the drama, we crave what it exposes.